Hey, let's get going. Hear it from the silver medalist first. Steve, congrats. I'm going to share your solution.
I could do. It's not very exciting, like, but
No, but take us through the notebook. It would be great. How you ensembled and got to
um,
where you did.
can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so this is like my highest scoring one. Um, yeah, so like as I said last week, it was just basically uh, somebody published a notebook showing about how to sort of ensemble, and in theirs they brought in um a data set which they ran each model on, like to validate it and to get a score that way. So I used that to get like initial scores and then tampered about. As you can see here, like these are all my attempts. So I have like weights for each model. Um, so these first three, these are um, the deburted models, like the sort of the first deburted model that was put up with context. So um, yeah, so you can see here like these. This is like processing this Wikipedia context in this sort of standard way. So like the context gets parsed and the sentences pulled out for each thing. Um, and then yeah, like there's three models here. So the three models are, one of them's like Chris Diott's model that he trained with the standard context. And then there's a couple of other ones. I'm not sure. They were like just ones I'd picked up. So those three that, as you can see, like they're very sort of like low weighting in my ensemble. So this the 0.4 one, like that's Chris Diott's one. Then these next ones, these are the ones that sort of gave me the best score, and these are using the alternative way to get the context. So like they were from that 270K context thing. Um, so here, yeah, like the notebook was about long former. So like this is using
Okay.
its method of creating the context with the 270 thing. Um, so yeah, again, it was just pulled straight out of that guy's notebook. The only change I made to that was, yeah, so again, he's using like sentence transformers to find like the Wikipedia documents that match with the thing. But he had like a list of stop words that he provided. And like in the discussion, somebody put in that if you actually like increase those stop words by using the stop words out of sklearn or whatever. So like this increased the stop words by, yeah, from 129 stop words up to 347 stop words. So you got like quite a few more. I tried increasing it more by pulling in stop words from these other libraries, but um, they actually put the score down a bit. So I presume like what's happening
So,
here is,
sorry, on the stopwords, I had a question. So, in fact, so these stopwords are used to chop the context to get a better context rather than whatever is produced default by the 270K. Is that, I mean, by getting the value from the Wikipedia text, is that the idea of using these additional stopwords?
yeah, I think so. So it's, yeah, like it sort of chops it into sentences or sections, I think, is what's happening. And then, yeah, like then it's like creating these vectors, which it then sort of like looks to match with the stuff that's in the sentence. So I think, yeah, like it basically sort of chopping it into smaller pieces. The more stop words you have, the more it chops it up. Um, yeah, so like just having a few more of those. So putting this in like gave me in the public leaderboard, it gave me a boost of, it's not a great boost, you get a 0.003, but like it was enough to sort of push you up above sort of other people who had similar notebooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like all of that there's the context from the long former notebook. That with that, so rather than using like the long former code, I used like the Deberta one, which had been trained. So
Right. Which model did you use for that?
yeah, so like actually here, this one here, this here is like
Yeah. In fact,
that's Chris
yeah,
Diott's model.
right.
That's Chris Diott's model that he'd used previously with the other contexts. So just using that with the new way of getting the context, this was like actually gave me the best score out of them all. Then I'd taken Chris Diott's training notebook and trained it with the new way of getting the context. Yeah, like to make my own models. So I had two of them as well.
Okay. In fact, to just highlight what you just said, when you mentioned last week that that's the way to go, I ran into some trouble because, I mean, it's kind of stupid of me, but the model pointer and stuff, like I couldn't get, I mean, I was making simple mistakes of, it had train one and the one, some spacing kind of syntax errors, and that kept bugging me. And I'll show when I get there. But to make a long story short, this particular model, what you essentially said, all I did was combine this whatever 5975, which it turns out isn't his model, but is somebody else's who has used his model, because I used, directly out of his two notebooks. The second training notebook, there is a model V2 and there is also a checkpoint 125 or whatever. And I used those two models and I got a very less score. But when I used this model with my, as you said, the 270K context,
Yeah.
that alone, and I ran out of time to do any ensemble, just submitted those two, it launched me into the bronze medal space.
All right. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I
So
thought
you
that this
can
was
say,
yeah. I thought that this was his
the
model. So, but yeah.
okay. No, it turns out it isn't, because I was like, man, Steve said it works so great, and how come I'm getting 0.831? I was just frustrated. But then I
Right.
poked around and I found that this model was used by somebody else with the 270K. So I grabbed that, ran it, and the exciting part of the story was this thing was running as the competition was ending, right? So I had to submit two choices for my final score. So I picked the whatever the lambda, 70 billion one or whatever, and then I left the second one open, because you can submit two things, assuming that it will be a race between this one and my. If this one is the best, then I wanted this pick. And sure enough, when I didn't choose the second submission, it picked this one because it finished this just before the competition closed, and I got into bronze. I was really shocked when I got that score.
All right. Very well
Really
planned.
funny. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even expect to do anything. And look where I ended up. So it was kind of like a pleasant surprise. But what is interesting is this particular model with 270K gives you a score which is exactly about the same for the public as for the private, which is amazing. In fact, the private, I think, if I recall, is like 0.01 better than the public with just this model, and it's 895 or 89. I think whatever I mentioned in the Slack that my score was. So it's like 895 or 897 with just simply this model. So anything that you and Rekil got, because Rekil also said he couldn't join today, he's on vacation, but essentially his was an ensemble. And so when you guys went to, I think yours was what, 0.907 on the private? Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah, 0.907.
Yeah, and mine is 0.895. So the 0.12 delta is entirely from the ensembles. I mean, you can, I mean, I was also pleased that it exactly gives you how much you and Raquel benefited from just ensembling compared to my single, because my single is just one of your ensembles.
Right. Yeah, so like this is the model that's used in the original ensemble notebook in with the standard context. And the reason I thought it was Chris Diot's, because you can see here he stuck the C on the end, and like down the bottom he was like
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
Chris
yeah.
Diot's model.
Yes,
So I thought that was
yes,
that's
yes.
why I was referring it to
No,
his.
it
So
turns out that, so I first tried two submissions after, shooting myself in the foot multiple times. I finally realized what I was doing wrong, and then I figured it out, and I then submitted Chris Diot's two models, which turns out is model V2 and a checkpoint one. And both of them gave me exactly 0.31. I was so frustrated. I was like, what the hell? I mean, Steve said it gave very close to 0.89, and why is it not working? And then suddenly I found out that, wait, he's kind of using a different model. Let me use this one. And then once I jumped onto this one, it gave me, and in fact, I didn't even see what it gave me. I just, let Kaggle pick between this and my previous score, and it turned out that this was the best score for me.
lucky you got there just in time.
Yeah,
Um,
I know. Incredibly
yeah,
lucky.
so yeah, so I used that model, and like I'd used one I trained myself, and then my notebook was slightly yes, like in the long former one, the guy makes two contexts. So like he gets his retrieved articles for each thing, and then he mashes them together somehow to get two contexts, and he sticks both of those through the model to get the two probabilities. Normally, like when he does it, then he just adds the two together and divides by two to get the average of the two.
Right, right,
But yeah, like I
right.
found like using the first context was slightly better than the second one. So you can see here I weight them slightly.
Vinted it.
But this was something I just tried on the very last day, and like this gave me like a little boost. Perhaps actually, if I'd had more chance to adjust these weights, it could have got slightly better. But yeah, I'd run out
Mhm.
of time by then. So like I did that for
So,
yeah, like both of them. So both there and there.
mhm. And by the way, when I saw your weights, they don't add up to one. So you kind of did it out of some other number, or like because you have multiple 0.9s.
Oh well, they do add up to one, but yeah. So like here's my weights. Yeah, yeah. So like that's my model, and that's Chris Diot's model. Well, what I refer to Chris Diot's model, and this is like the long former, which is
Right.
my training. But you can see now I add them up and divide, so you can
Ah,
see those are just rather than playing about with like little decimal things. I just play about with these ones, but then divide it by the sum. So these are the actual weights here,
okay, okay.
so,
I
which
see.
do add
So
up
you
to
do
one. Sorry.
normalize.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't want to tinker about like with little tiny decimals. So
Yeah, yeah.
um but yeah, so um yeah,
So
and then the
three models with the kind of the regular context, and three with the 270K context, and then there are a couple, and then there's like one or two
then
more,
there's a
right?
couple more, yeah. So like this is like the um yeah, so yeah, so the two DeBerta ones, and then like the actual long former one, and then there was a couple that were in the original ensemble notebook. So I don't actually know what they are. I just stuck with them. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so there's two models here, whatever whatever this is. So I don't even know which notebooks they've come from, but yeah, so there's two extra models that
And
Yeah,
did you, sorry, the other thing I was curious was, did you combine the actual probabilities or how did you like ensemble them?
yeah, so like they're all just the probabilities coming out, and then at the end, yeah, so like this is the final prediction. So yeah, like it's like all just like the what do you call it? The soft, yeah, the
The
soft
logics
max.
or the probability?
It's the probability, yeah. So the soft max taken of the logits. So
Uh,
every single one is like the soft max. So yeah, like each
okay.
one is the probability from the model, and then yeah, multiplied by the
And
weights.
then
And
you calculate the final, and then you take the three top ones from that.
yeah, yeah. So you can see here, like, so these are like weighted probabilities. It's like all of the probabilities from each model weighted and added together, and then yeah, like then convert it into A, B's, and C's.
Yeah. It'd be great if you can share this notebook. I'd really like to go through it and understand it a lot better.
Yeah, I'll do that after this.
That'd be great. Awesome. So as Mehul pointed out, so it's like two silvers in a row. So are you like a Kaggle expert now, or what are you?
No, you don't change. You gotta get something like 5 silvers or something silly. I think
Oh,
the only way to
really?
get
Dang.
up is yeah to get a gold really. So I think it
Mm.
might be
A
five
gold.
silvers,
So if
but
you got the gold, I think one gold counts for a lot. So it was a bummer that you missed the gold on Vesuvius.
yeah. So
Mm. And I think Dekil isn't here, but he just mentioned that he had again the same thing of um, submitting the um, uh, um, ensembles, and that's how he got to. I think his is 0.90, I forget, one or something like that. Private leaderboard for. And let me see where. Here's mine, which you see. Barely made it. 895. Um, yeah, look at. I was pretty impressed by. Look at how good the model is with respect to private and public. Like this drops by 0.001. Actually, it drops. It doesn't increase. But private score is 0.895 and public score is 0.896. And this is with 20%. This is with 80%. So it's a really, really good model. And as you can see, well, actually you can see it here, but I mean, bottom line, there's nothing other than, getting the test. I didn't even use the additional stopwords thing. Maybe even that could have gotten me something because the additional stopwords were in this part, right? Yeah. So I wonder if I just stick in, your additional stopwords, how much would that improve this score? That
yeah, as I
itself
say,
could have
it takes
kicked
you
me
up.
up.
It takes you up 0.003, or it should do.
Okay. So 895 to 003. Well, still below 9, but 0.009. But you can see, I was trying all these models, you can see, and tails and geometric weights. See, this model V2 was the from the man's notebook. And then this checkpoint 125 is also from his notebook. I was like, dang. And then finally, I just stick in this and voila, got it done. Pretty funny. Otherwise, it's, there's nothing to it. Just simply using that model with the 270K context, just like you said. I thought it was pretty. How do I get to submissions from here?
Just go back, I think. Probably, yeah. Maybe just go to competitions and go through that way.
Oh, okay. Oops, that's not in this. In competitions. Wait, what? Take me here.
Yeah, so there's submissions.
Where is it? There. Okay. Yeah, got it. So see here, just to show my journey, I was like, 0.831, 0.831, and then boom, 0.896. Pretty funny. And then, just for future reference, I picked the best one, but if you are, the most, I would say the most insightful thing I did was chose this one as my second submission and then left my choice of second submission open. So it could pick, if my run turned out to be the best, it could pick this, which it did, versus my, 0.878 or whatever the Platypus 70 billion one turned out to be. So I didn't pick between this one and that one because I didn't finish running. So I just said, you pick. And and it finished running this just in the nick of time, and it chose this because it got. That's so funny. I just lucked out. On this competition. How about anybody else? Mike, Terence, were you able to make a submission? Emily?
I did not go beyond what I had already.
Yeah, I just made like one more submission. That was the one I was working on last week. And I was pretty low. I think my public score was 0.822 and private ended up being 0.806. But I was a little excited because that was in the public score, that was a 0.005 jump, and in the private score it was a 0.003 jump, which I don't know. I'm curious to know is that like a statistically significant jump here? I guess it changes in the. I guess there's nothing. I guess it's deterministic, right? So I guess it is significant, even though it's very small. Or what are people's reads on that?
Because it's a competition, as Steve was saying, especially in the ranking stuff, and the 0.05 is a significant jump and 0.03 is also significant. I mean, in fact, as I was saying, you get from 0.895, which is my score, to 0.907, which is Steve's score. So about, what is that's just about 0.1012, right? And 0.012 puts you from my 295th or whatever my ranking is in the competition to 73, if I'm not mistaken, which is Steve. So you can see it helps you move up. 0.012 helps you move up from the bottom of the bronze, barely making it to bronze, to kind of comfortably in the silver.
Yeah, a lot of pretty tight, packed scores there.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So as you go up, it really becomes, like every 100th of a point is significant.
Yeah, sure. Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah, so what I did to get that was just like one tiny change, and that was to when they're concatenating and I was using Chris Diott's notebook, and I think I'd made some other changes that may have dropped the score before that. But between to get that tiny jump at the end when they're concatenating the answers. So what I wanted to do was have it taken like I guess store the answer separately rather than concatenating. But I don't know. I didn't really know how to implement that. I felt like it was going to take a fair amount of time to figure out for me. So I just added like some unusual character between the different answers. So I just added like 3 what's it called? The vertical bars. Because that's pretty unusual. And so I added that in between the concatenation, in between the answers. And that was, I think, the only change I made.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Yeah, in terms of the score, it's because of the fact they only show you 4 decimal places, sometimes it's hard to tell which of your notebooks better, and you can get people on the same exact score. But yeah, there could be like 200 people. And like one useful thing is when you score your own notebooks, I'll just share my screen again here. You can sort them by your score. So yeah, so for example here, like in my submissions, you can go here and set them by public score. So you can see here, like these are all like 916s, like the top 3, but this one here is better. And so like these ones here, they would have been like lower down the leaderboard. So because you've only got the 3 decimal places, this one here could be like 9169, but you can't see it. And this one here could be like 9615, and that could be 9160. So it's useful when you're selecting your best one to sort them by the score.
Oh yeah, thanks. That's good to know.
It depends. It depends on the competition. Yeah, sometimes they give you more than 3 decimal places. Sometimes like they let you sort of see so as you can distinguish how good each notebook is. But in this one here, yeah, so
okay,
it's hard to see.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
No, I haven't gotten beyond what I had. So I was busy with some other stuff. So I like submitted what I originally got, and it didn't resulted anywhere. So I was stuck there.
Cool. But I don't know whether anybody had a chance yet to look at any of the other postings. I kind of bookmarked some of them. Look at a couple of them if people are interested.
I started looking at like the explanation of the winning solution. It just
the first one.
It sounds like they just did so much work getting their context right. It sounds like they spent days and weeks just getting the context and like fine tuning it and cleaning it up and stuff. I got tired just reading how they did it, let alone having to go and do that to the context. So I was never going to put that much effort into cleaning my context up.
Yeah, that's true though. I mean, that's what it takes to end up at the very top of anything Kaggle related.
Yeah, like in this case, I think there was like so much you could do to clean things up, and obviously I think they're from like H2O, aren't they? So they're probably allowed to do it during their working day.
Yeah, that's their life and livelihood too. So Yeah, I was curious. Anybody seen? I haven't gone through these, so this is the first place that Steve was pointing out. And did they have an ensemble too, Steve? Or yeah, it's like an ensemble.
Yeah.
And see, 7 billion and 13 billion LLM. That's the other thing too, right? It's like all 7 billion and 13 billion LLMs, whereas at least, yours, for example, or for that matter, even mine, is a single Liberta V3 model. I guess that, but at the same time, it's also remarkable. I don't know how much ensembles, I don't know whether they mentioned how many, but it has to run within the 9 hours, right? So was yours like close to 9 hours, Steve, or the ensemble?
It was probably about 7. I had a third
Okay.
model in another Liberta model, which I'd like spent ages training and stuff, but it wasn't as good as that one we were talking about.
Mhm.
And so yeah, like I dropped it at the end because yeah, like it was coming very close to the 9 hours, and it wasn't giving me any benefit.
Mhm.
So yeah, potentially I could have squeezed more in there. Yeah, like I saw like Chris Diott's solution. He'd said that he'd found that pretty much the more models you put in, the bigger the ensemble, the better results he got. I think it is just sort of the more sort of models you have voting on the thing. That's what's it called, the wisdom of crowds or whatever. So
Yeah,
the more
right.
votes you have, the better. Although I actually beat Chris Diott, which was good. He seemed to sort of, in his solution, he ended up sort of going off like saying that because he'd found that the more models he had, he went down the path of like trying to get the models to run as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I haven't. The other search, as I always do, was I was curious. I haven't looked at it. I will spend some time looking at it, is to see whether anybody had any success with a single model. What's the best score that anybody has gotten? So, without an ensemble. And of course, there is I haven't seen any post that, or at least I checked this a couple, 3 days back. It's not like I'm current, but looking at the diagram makes it
pretty
pretty,
complex, isn't it?
yeah. Hey, how did this is M Banako? That our buddy Reku? Or is that somebody else?
Where
This year?
I presume it's someone else.
Our man is just Pat Banako, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, some re-ranker model. Regulation studies. Wow. Getting 3 Electras and 5 Robertas.
What's a re-ranker model, do you know?
No, in fact, that's what I was curious about too. Model. The new model. This is a tuned re-ranker model. Well, the guy says he'll publish his code, so that ought to tell us. I guess we'll know what's the re-ranking model in a few days. I have no idea. Anyone else know what is a re-ranker model?
Yeah, I don't know what it is,
Seems
but
like
yeah,
a IBM model.
yeah.
Also, there's some mention of negative training. Thing with hard negatives. There is a solo goal too. It'll be interesting. Keep an eye on the third one.
Yeah.
So re-ranker was the third place solution?
No, it's not just that. It's like a huge.
That's
but he talks about the re-ranker and how he had some struggles and I hadn't heard of the re-ranker model, so this and ST was we were just asking.
Yeah, it's used in search all the time. The idea is that you pick candidates that sort of relevant, and then you run another model to actually, you know, pick the best answer, or reorder them in the right way.
So you retrieve something and then you run another model on the retrieval. But there isn't a model for the retrieving, right? So
yeah, so typically these days, initial pick is done with just a similarity, but you pick relevant documents, and you limit them to like 10 or 20, and then re-ranker. What re-ranker does is just then it does the finds most relevant, but just within those, so you can run models that are like take a long time, because you only have very few candidates.
yeah, I guess this paragraph kind of touches on what you were talking, right? It says that question answering part does its job if provided with correct context, right? And that's why you get the boost from tuning re-ranker. The weakest part is the initial retrieval, which is also consistent with what Steve pointed out the first place guys did, which is spend most of their time cleaning up the initial retrieval. So that means that once you have excellent context, the question answering part is easy. The tough part to get the best result is spend all your time on the retrieval, which is what this guy seems to be hinting at too, right? Since it's the part that's not tuned for competition data. And this is the part I don't get, which is it consists of two very small models with very limited capacity, which are tasked to index huge data set. That may be referring to the embedding models that are used for retrieval.
Yeah, I saw some people saying about, yeah, so the sentence transformers that were used for getting the context, they were just out of the box sentence transformers, and people were talking about fine-tuning those to improve your context.
Ah, okay. And you would fine-tune that on the competition data?
Well, on the
Or
Wikipedia
on,
data.
like,
Yeah, so with the competition data, but with the Wikipedia data that you're getting the context from, like try and fine tune those sentence models to give you better results rather than just take one out of the box.
Yeah, because this last sentence is the summary, right?
Yeah.
Which is exactly what. Doing the retrieval rather than any pouring of the question answering part. It's a good third place entry is something to pick. Third place. They talk about high quality data. Anybody familiar with Elasticsearch retrieval or Elasticsearch and what it does? Can anybody talk to that?
I've heard the term, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know enough to talk about it. It's a traditional lexical search or like a EM25 search, which is like a version with like a lot of implemented rules, I think, on top of that.
That seems like a worthwhile thing to explore, right? Elasticsearch, just like the read anchor, things to kind of chase down or learn more about read anchor and Elasticsearch or better retrieval, tuning the retrieval models. This is the reference, the Elasticsearch retrieval example. Sentence transform. Yeah, I don't know that we'll figure it out into about what is Elasticsearch data. So that's a new technique or we're not going to figure it out. But that's something. Again, some other technique, right? BM25 is sparse retrieval using PySerenity library. Although you could have to, and then we parse with Wikipedia.
Yeah, I'd seen people saying that the Wikipedia pages that had been sort of dumped to make the new data set, supposedly they hadn't handled number stuff right. So people had gone in to clean that up and create better Wikipedia things. So it looks like this person's sort of created their own Wikipedia stuff as well.
Yeah. Yes. What? And therefore, the data set covers pages with numbers or math expressions. Sparse and dense data. And an ensemble of multiple large language models, 7, 13, 70, and Mistral 70. So 4 big LLMs. Or actually, they say we use Mistral 70 and Llama 70D in our finals. So that means 2 models maybe. This is pretty incredible. Using such large models. Okay. Oh wow. This is an interesting. I mean, they publish a code as to how they do this, but they use different models to handle different level of challenges of the question. Then around all data in the first stage, influence on the bottom 40 confidence in the first stage, and influence on the bottom 5% with low confidence in the first and the second stage one. Even with all that, they get to what, fifth? Fifth. Okay. This next is 10th. I have to figure out what is IVFTQ. Okay, anybody? It was interesting, just as a side comment, is 0.894 without training any model. I haven't read it, but
I know that guy, he was involved in the, like the platypus thing. Yeah, like getting the large platypus LLM to run in the Kaggle notebook. So I'm not sure, is that what he's got here? Yeah, like sort of splitting it into layers and running it one at a time as opposed to running the whole model. Yeah, so he said there about using the platypus one, but yeah, like I suppose its license wasn't suitable. So yeah, that line there at the top. Yeah, so he'd taken some other sort of version of Llama.
Yeah, this X-Wing model.
Yeah, because I'd actually submitted my copy of their platypus model as my second choice. Lucky I didn't win. I didn't realize it wasn't in the competition rules.
Yeah, I mean, but I think people said it was, even this guy and the platypus guy went back and forth, and they kind of said it's okay.
Yeah, like I thought it was like open source model. I thought it was freely available.
Yeah.
So
So he says that it was something about non-commercial license. Interesting too. Models, blah, blah, blah. 70 billion guy. But he said without Wikipedia RAG, so that his score is only that, but he seems to imply that he did it without any RAG. It is true is something pretty different, right? Am I understanding this correctly? That he just does it without providing any additional context and he still gets that level of scores?
I don't know. Like I know, like in his initial notebooks, he had been using the Wikipedia context.
Right. But here specifically, I bookmarked this to follow up or understand because he mentions that.
Perhaps he has. Perhaps he's just taken the model without it. Yeah, because like in his other notebooks, he'd had all the stuff at the start.
Right. He just runs it. it does seem like he's running this without any context, additional that is, right? And he still gets 0.853, which is a pretty solid baseline, I would think. So in a sense, let's see. Now to go from 853 to 928, so about 0.1 6, 0.16 something is around 0.1617 is the difference that you get from RAG. Now, of course, the model sizes are the same, kind of an interesting perspective too, right? Like about 0.1 something, 1x, where x is greater than 5. So 1718 is the extent to which RAG helps a model. I think his score with RAG that I saw, at least on the public, was 0.878 or something in that range. The best one that I saw, between 878 to 853, about 0.2, 0.02 something, is what the platypus 70 billion RAG seems to get in. Data. With the model, but just RAG seems to give you about 0.42. Like I said, the ensemble is, compared to a single thing, seems to get you, whereby I was 895, so 0.9, roundabout, so 0.25, and you have to add anything above 0.9, but we add that to 0.25 to see the improvement just from the ensembling. Ensembling, and I guess if they have done any cleanup of the I don't know, this is I thought he submitted this maybe after the competition ended or something, Steve? Chris?
I'm not
He
sure,
talks
but
about 0.904 score. No, it is actually 1 out of 7 in final solution. But you said you had a better score than him. He says leaderboard point, or is this public?
that's public leaderboard score. I think he dropped a bit.
And it's a single model retrieval notebook. Oh, wow, look at this. Just by some setting of the flag. EFIDF RAG. Wow.
Huh?
Fascinating. Sublinear TF. IDF is just this word match thingy, right? Verse data mapping of some kind. Used to know this.
And I can't remember. Sorry, I
frequency match.
Sorry, Yuri?
Yeah, it's a frequency of how many times that those words are used versus like everywhere else.
Yeah, but it's fascinating that, this flag, whatever that flag means, from false to true would I need to do that. So he's saying if you do the retrieval doing this, it kind of pushes the score on public leaderboard from about 0.897 to 0.904. And private goes up to 0.893 to 0.902. That's a significant boost. Worth checking out. How you convert RAG to rapid TF-IDF. And yeah, this is the one that I guess this is the one that you're talking about, Steve, that he just
That's right, yeah.
The more you throw in, the more you get. Anyway, this could be an interesting one. Directly pointed out that he did still want to spend some time. Maybe we'll do it next when he's here on how to utilize the two TPUs, in parallel for sure for training and stuff. He said he was still having some difficulties in making that happen. Even after last week, he just sent me a message. He'll spend some time because this seems to say that he did use two P4 GPUs, right?
Yeah.
But a 4x faster than a 100. What he uses to do that. 2x speed, and this is spreading the data around. And then this thing that we just saw improves by 0.01, which is really pretty significant. That high rank. Yeah, I think exactly, Steve, to your point and to the point of the first place, third place, fifth place guys.
Yeah.
We would have been better off improving the quality of the RAG rather than the RAG. Something we learned from this that more the fact of how good your quality of data, the context that you feed in, that matters more than the question. This is interesting too. I didn't know of what or the technique like this exists. You aware, Steve, or you or anybody else have seen this? This seems interesting too, right? Like, I think typically what you do is question. I mean, question plus answers is what you use to go search for a context. And then you provide for the eventual LLM the context question answer. Right? That's what you train with. Context question, 5 choices. Currently, one way of augmenting is drop the question. So 50% we use only the 5 choices to look at. The debater is then trained with just context plus 5 choices rather than context question 5 choices without seeing the question. Using question dropout augmentation, achieve best math 3 loss for 200 trained samples. And this single model achieved a leaderboard of 0.904. That's fascinating. I hadn't seen this technique of just dropping.
No, I hadn't seen that before, and yeah, like I trained Deberta models, but I was just using standard training.
And that seems fascinating, right? Little twist. Yeah, this one Raquel actually talked about, which is just flipping around the choices that I've seen. It did give him some boost. In fact, Raquel mentioned the quantification of.
Yeah, I tried doing that, but in the models that we were using, the multiple choice model there, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what order they go into in that. It would only be if you were using like Llama or something, then you could have used that technique.
Ah, okay, nice. So in Deberta, you didn't see a difference, but you didn't see a difference when you're using 200 or when we're using a larger CV.
No, like it's exactly the same. When you're using that multiple choice model, it doesn't matter what order you put the choices in.
Oh, I see. Fascinating. This is very interesting too. How we got a 1.6x by eliminating the 2 last predictions and making them the same as the third worst prediction.
Like in principle, the order doesn't matter? Or...
Order does matter. Yeah, like so I found if I was using like say the Llama model where you're putting the question in and you're saying yeah, which of these A, B, C, or D, or E is the right answer. If you were just asking it like that one question, then you could train it and you could swap them around. So you could like move B to A example or whatever. And yeah, like if you do it that way, then you can get like 120 permutations from these. And so like that would be a good sort of training technique. But in the case of that model that we were using, the multiple choice model thing, I think it just does one at a time. And so like in that case, it doesn't matter if you put A first and B third or whatever.
Okay.
But like
Yeah,
that's just a feature of that multiple choice model thing.
Yeah, I see.
because you're repeating the question with each answer, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it does that.
Yeah, because I think it's yeah, so you're putting the question and the answer together and you're saying sort of what are the probability of this being right? And then you're putting the question again with the second answer and saying what's the probability of this being right? And so you're doing 5 steps. So it doesn't matter if you what order you do those steps in because it's just asking what's the probability of this. Whereas like the other techniques using like the LLM was like saying which of these 5 answers is the correct one. And in that case, you're giving
Sure.
it the question and the 5 answers together. And so yeah, if you do swap them around, then you can use like that technique to augment it.
I see.
Okay, so that's all the poking around I'd done. To line it up, obviously, as I mentioned, still Elasticsearch and what was it? Retrainer? Something? Ranker. And some of this, whatever the TF-IDS settings on flag to those are things that are worth chasing a little bit further to understand sublinear TF. All these are pretty interesting things to learn to do. Build up our bag of tricks. Anything else people have looked at or things they want to comment on? Yeah, we'll continue to keep an eye out. Maybe the third guy, this guy might publish the notebook and stuff, and we can look at that. We'll spend maybe next week a little bit on this multi, getting stuff run successfully on the 2 TPU version, and if it shows up, we can have a discussion about that. And I would say, begin to look at what next competition. I just saw either today morning or last night some other LLM prompting show up. This, I think, writing quality stuff that has shown up. If you want to stick with LLM for a little bit longer, since that seems to be all the rage.
I've actually joined another competition already. I've joined one that's like another time series prediction one. It's that's
the other one that what's his name? Rakil had also mentioned. This is like a stock prediction thingy, Steve.
Yeah, so I've joined it. It seems pretty good because like ones we've done in the past, there's been like a lot of data manipulation that you've had to do and shuffling data.
Yeah.
But this competition, it's actually been organized by 2 guys who won some time series prediction competition a couple of years ago. And so like they seem to have organized it. Yeah, that one there, the Optiver trading thing.
Yeah, that's the one that Rakil put on the top of his list. I'm okay with choosing that one if that's interesting.
I can obviously do it in parallel with any other one if we decide to go in a different one. But yeah, so I've signed up to this one. It goes up until the 20th of December. So it's been going for
so pretty much
3 weeks or whatever. So I'm not very far into it yet. I also signed up. There's another competition going at the minute, which is like a random competition where you've got to unlock keys. It's called Capture the Flag or something.
Oh, yeah.
But,
I saw that one.
It's
some security. This one.
Yeah, this one here, but it's bizarre. It's so there's 27 puzzles effectively that you have to solve. This one here as well, it's it only lasts for a month, and you don't get any sort of points or whatever or medals or anything like that. So it's 27 sort of puzzles where you've got to solve each puzzle, and if you solve the puzzle, then a flag pops out, and then you submit that. But it's random stuff. It's if you go into the code bit, so you see the starter one there, CTF starter.aiv, the third notebook down. Yeah, so this is the actual sort of official notebook. So if you go down after test, so here, that one there, the cluster level one. So it's all little riddles and stuff, and then you have to put stuff into the query. You put some input data into the query function, and if your answer is right, it'll pop you out the right key. But one of them further down is about you have to put an image into the thing, and it's about I think it's a bit further down, and it's maybe it's granny number 7. It's about about a wolf that's trying to disguise itself, and it's trying to disguise itself as a Granny Smith apple. So you got to put it an image into the into the function, and if your image is right, it'll pop you out the key. So I've been at this all week. I've been putting pictures of Granny Smith apples in there all week, and pictures of wolves, and wolves disguised as apples and apples disguised as wolves, trying to get this key. And I've given up. It just never worked. So yeah, it's really frustrating competition. So I got the first two keys and I've had to give up.
Wow.
But it's a bizarre one.
Oh, interesting.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Want to spend a lot of time just.
Yeah. Yeah, like I spent all week with Photoshop trying to merge pictures of apples and wolves together.
Yeah, maybe you should do stable diffusion to come up with granny apples.
I tried
The
that as well.
grannies and then
I've been at it all week, banging my head against the wall. But
yeah, like dream booth or this or that, and then create some new image or something.
yeah,
Like
so
that. Yeah, so there seem to be, and then the other one, this was Rakel's number one choice too. The second one, this one was this one. That's also has enough time. I mean, we have
Yep.
kind of tackled something similar to this also previously.
yeah, the reason I like going for the time series one was just because the data is pretty clean and it is just a really sort of basic time series thing. And it's not like the
Yeah,
competition that we've just done where people with big computers can win or people who spend weeks
yeah,
cleaning up
yeah.
context can win. It is, yeah, it's just sort of trying to predict the share price 60 seconds into the future or something.
Okay, yeah, I like that. In fact, Rakel also said his third competition, I forget which one he mentioned, and he said that that's too kind of too much data, and he didn't feel like spending all his time data munging. I thought that he was referring to, but this is the one that showed up just yesterday or today. Yeah, 3 days back, I guess.
Again, that's just a short competition. You can see it finishes in 23 days. It's not a proper competition.
Oh,
It's just
wow.
some.
Interesting. Just
Yes.
prompting, in fact.
Yeah.
So, like you say, I mean, maybe we take up, play with this, but at the same time do the optiver thingy. Look at what was, yeah, Optiver was the first one, and then UBC Ocean, and he said this last one is two. And as I said, those were the history. Optiver was the first one. So maybe we choose Optiver and then like fiddle around with this for 25 days anyway. LLM prompting the side while Steve captures more flags.
No, I've given up capturing that. It was getting very annoying.
Okay, so encourage you folks to submit, what you think on Slack. I'm inclined to go with what people are interested. So the Optimal one is a good one. Flip it to data simple and a while and go back to time series for a little bit. So we move on to something else.
Yeah, as I say, I'm
Anything
happy to
else?
do sort of
Anybody?
two. I'm happy to do two in parallel if people want to stay on LLM competitions.
Yeah, that doesn't, I mean, other than this one thing, like I said, which is, oops, not the right one, which is not this maker suite one, but this one. I don't know whether this is as much LLM thingy. it I think ends.
Yeah, it's only started. Yeah, it said it started
12
12.
days back.
Yeah. So.
January 9th is the submission deadline. And you're working days is around December.
And hey, can both of you share your code that you use for the
Yeah, sure.
competition since you're winners?
Yeah, I wouldn't put much behind my name. Like a lucky winner. But it's the simplest thing you can do, so that's the good thing. I like the single model, no ensemble, and just sticking the 270K tag with no additional, and those are things, by the way, that the reason I wanted Steve's notebook also was like, all these little things that he was talking about of what he had done additionally and knowing how to do that. And so, for example, even in my notebook, you could potentially add from Steve's notebook the additional stop words and see how much the score improves. So, that's the fun part. And, for those who have not done this before, the scoring continues to work even after the competition ends. So you can continue to submit notebook and it will still give you score. And in fact, now I think if I recall correctly, will it give you both public and private, Steve?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can continue, to modify mine or Steve's or anybody else's and resubmit. It will give you this updated score with all of the data. So that's another way you can learn. In fact, for the first year and a half that we were doing the competitions, we were only participating in competition that had ended because we aren't allowed to share code in competitions that are active unless you share it with the public. I mean, you're okay to kind of discuss it and point to it, but if you actually share code like we are requesting right now for Steve and I to do, then that's a no-no. But now we can do it with no hesitation because the competition. All right, let's kind of all weigh in on what we want to do next and kind of take one more week to discuss how to use these two T4 thingies, which Raquel was interested in doing, and I'd like to know more about as well. So Mike, you had some thoughts on that. So if you also can take a look at what this Chris guy had posted and stuff. And then, I'll let Raquel chime in on what he was having. That would be a good discussion, and then we can kind of analyze our choice of as part of our next week discussion as well.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Good deal.
Cheers. See you
Thanks
next week.
for joining, and see you all next week. Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.